Yes, hi, and welcome to Asia Metaverse New Era Summit. I'm very excited that you're all joining us today, and I hope you're having an amazing summit so far and making some memorable networking connections from all around the globe. This discussion today will be connecting with various international companies, all in the metaverse world. My name is January Barnes. I'm the moderator. I'm also the founder, tech reporter at ParlayMe, a tech news platform and content creation studio for entrepreneurs, startups, investors, and business leaders. So joining us today, we have three panelists. So in no particular order, we have Jure Z, who is a founder of Sway Social. And please let me know if I pronounce your name correct, Jure. And then we have also Ori Levi, who's the CEO of NFTrade. And we also have with us, and I don't want to pronounce your name wrong, so perhaps you can pronounce your name for us and introduce yourself because I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Would you mind? If you could pronounce your name, sorry. So I,
Me?
yes, is that okay?
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want to pronounce it wrong.
Sorry for that. I'm English low. Sorry, but um, um, I'm South Korea. I'm
Mm-hmm.
from Korea. It's a Seoul based on is my office. Is a I'm first time Apple engineer. It's a
Mm-hmm.
1996. Is starting is a 20 years. Is a developing Korea, and
Okay.
now is a metaverse. Is an online game. Did you know it's Counter Strike? Shooting
No,
game.
I don't, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm sure people joining us today do,
Yes,
and some of our panelists.
2008 is I'm working Mini is a Counter-Strike is creator working together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, wow.
19 we open Bearable Team is an online game is a tactical intervention. We searching for YouTube is a I can make a game is a we 1 billion 5 years is player, but
Wow.
1012 17 is a closing and change is a metaverse is developing right now. So
Mm-hmm.
we product is a metaverse drawing creator is a drawing painting world is a we is server platform open next 2 years. We
Fantastic.
yes.
Fantastic. So you're a developer, and what is the name of the company that you represent?
My company name is a D-Carrick. D-Carrick is a
Okay.
D-Carrick. D-Carrick mean is a digital character. Is a drawing.
Ah, clever,
D-Carrick.
very clever. I love it. Well,
Yes.
welcome. Today's going to be very interesting. Topics that we're going to discuss is how NFTs will be utilized in the metaverse, current
Mhm.
technical limitations of realizing a true future metaverse,
Mhm.
monetizing social capital, which I think is something Jure can help us about in Web3 and metaverse world. Before we do deep dive into it, we have a limited amount of time, but if you could each just briefly introduce yourselves, what you're working on maybe at the moment, if you can share, and a little bit about your respective companies. That would be great, just for the audience to understand. Maybe we'll start with you, Ori. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Sure. Didn't want to barge in, but of course. Yes, so my name is Ori. I'm the founder and CEO of NFTrade. Been into cryptocurrencies and blockchain stuff since late 2012, and been doing mainly marketing and PR for a lot of these companies. And I have seen NFTs about 3 years ago and didn't pay much attention to them until last year, actually the last quarter of 2020, when I have realized that game items are definitely going to be switched with NFTs. I actually the game I was playing is actually Counter-Strike. So that's a good connection here. And so, yeah, one thing that we saw missing from NFT marketplaces or NFT platforms in general was the ability to swap NFTs between users, which is something that we see a lot of a lot of in the traditional gaming world. And so not having that ability in NFTs made me come up with NFTrade, which is a platform you can do a lot of things on. But one of the first things we focused on was the ability to swap NFTs between users. And this came to me from game items from Counter-Strike. And so, yeah, I can tell more about NFTrade later, but I'll have Jure.
That's fantastic. You've been here from the get-go. You're not a new adopter. I'd say you're an early adopter, working in crypto since 2012. So that's amazing. We might skip along to you, Jure, a little bit about yourself, what you're working on, and your company.
Yeah, sure. So I've been actually in the crypto space. Well, my crypto journey started with NFTs, and like really early on, I was right before CryptoKitties launched. We started to look at different standards for putting certificates on blockchain. Back then, it was Blocksters was kind of like the thing that everybody used on Bitcoin, but ERC 721 came out. Actually, the EIP came out, and I was actually a co-founder of a company that built the first NFT protocol back in 2018. And the part of the team that we had back then actually worked on the finalizing the ERC 721 standard, which everybody uses today. Long story short, I've been in the NFT since then. Last year, I founded Cloud Art, which is basically my first kind of like thinking of how Web 2 assets and Web 2 capital is going to translate it to Web 3. Cloud Art, what it does, it takes social media posts and then turns them into NFTs. So kind of like we tried to figure out the best way to actually take something that exists on Web 2 and make sure we capture all the value and then put it to Web 3. But when we were building this, sort of like this transcended into this idea around what is social capital? How is the social capital from Web 2 going to look like in Web 3? I'll talk a bit about that later, but that kind of that kind of transcended into Sway Social, which is basically a protocol. I think the first one for Web 3 that allows you to monetize yourself and your community as an NFT creator inside Web 3. Yeah, so much in short.
Very cool. I love it. Well, you're definitely our NFT expert on the panel today, so that's brilliant. And I would love to show you've kind of already introduced yourself, but if you just want to recap shortly, what you're working on at the moment and your respective company, just a little bit about them. Ho Choi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yes.
Just a little bit about what you're working on now and your company would be great. Thank you.
I would like. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm English low.
No, you're good. You're doing good.
We working and engage is Metaverse solution. England made they making is island corporate. Is we based on is a Korea service. So we consult and we education we is selling right now, and we painting world is we got a KT Telecom is a corporate. We developing sometimes outsourcing. We Apple solution we cooperate too. So we got it is a Apple based on is Korea. So we use right now. So we totally 30 people working together. Yes.
Fantastic. And the company's called D-Carrick. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Well, let's get into the discussion, folks, because there's plenty to cover. The metaverse is a wild, wild west at the moment, but hopefully we can decipher it a bit for everyone today. So, firstly, a topic I'd love to discuss is how is the metaverse different? And this is just in general in your eyes, panelists, different to virtual reality and augmented reality, or is it the same? So Mark Zuckerberg describes the metaverse as an embodied internet, where instead of just viewing the content, you're actually in it, like immersed in it. So with this in mind, how does the metaverse leverage existing virtual reality and augmented reality technologies, whilst I guess evolving into its own entity, yeah, like because it's going to be much more than just virtual reality and augmented reality. And how I guess perhaps is the metaverse more than a buzzword, and that's just a generalization as well. But perhaps we could start with you, Ori. Again, these are quite, we might need a whole hour to discuss, but just for you, how do you think the metaverse is different or perhaps the same as virtual reality and augmented reality?
So I think that the metaverse, well, it's definitely being used as a buzzword these days. I think that a lot of these upcoming games that promise a metaverse are just another sort of World of Warcraft or sort of other games that we've had for many, many years already. So I think that should be should not be taken as actual metaverse. What we have seen so far is nothing. So I haven't seen any real metaverse adoption yet. Anything that's really what the actual promise of a metaverse is, and so that should be taken into account when looking at projects that promise that those metaverses. But what we're going to see is the ability to travel between these different worlds that are being created, and that is something that's not happening yet. Being able to use your NFTs, because this is our discussion right today, NFTs, being able to use your NFTs in multiple platforms, multiple metaverses, multiple worlds, as you want to call them, that's going to be the real change, and that's going to give you the real online identity that is basically the metaverse. But a lot of these games that are being created these days, games or worlds, are just using, most of them are just using the Web3 technology to kind of represent currencies in the game, which is great, but that's not what everyone's all about. That could easily be represented on a Web2 platform as well. There is value to it, I definitely agree, but this isn't what the metaverse is all about. So we haven't seen any of it yet, to be honest. And regarding the virtual reality and augmented reality, in terms of augmented reality, I think it's going to take a long time until that's ever going to be really used in the real world. However, in terms of the VR, we are already seeing more and more of these technologies being used today, and more companies are building on top of and using VR technology. And I think that would bring the real use cases for metaverse. But it's not either, or it could be, sorry, I meant it could be either. It doesn't have to come together. VR could be used, and metaverses don't necessarily need to be used as in a VR environment. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. That's brilliant. And Jure, yourself, where do you see the whole virtual reality, augmented reality? Do you think one's going to dominate the other? As Ori mentioned, is one going to be faster to market than the other one? He pointed out that he thinks it's a long tail for augmented reality, and virtual reality is, pretty much here already. Any thoughts on that?
I actually agree with him on two things. Number one, we're still super early. That's a fact. And number two, a lot of the things that exist right now are still basically Web2 solutions. They're using kind of like the metaverse or even the Web3 as buzzwords. But I think, they are pointing in the right direction. And the reason why I believe is, why they are still Web2 solutions is because everybody, I won't say everybody, a lot of people in this space forget one thing, that these changes can't come overnight. Like we can't just come up with metaverse and Web3 and just everybody's just going to transit over to this new thing because it has NFTs. And that's kind of like our experience with cloud art, right? Because there's cloud art primarily, it's a minting service in the marketplace for NFTs from social media posts. What we did differently from everybody else, and I think we were the first who did it this way, is we didn't say we're going to build a new Instagram app and have you take your photos as NFTs. But we said, use the content you have on Web 2 and then, turn those into NFTs. Because people have, and that's a known fact, an emotional attachment to their content. And if you've been building your community for the last 10 years, you're not just going to abandon everybody because this new novel thing has NFTs. That's not how it goes. I'll tell you one thing, though. I was surprised, being in the NFT space, how fast this has come to kind of like touch the mainstream. It's not mainstream yet, but how far along it's gone in the last couple of years. So that's taken me a bit of a surprise. But yeah, so in terms of what Metaverse to me is, I think it's a concept. It should be, when you start labeling it as either is it VR, AR, is it Web3, is it NFTs? I think it's a concept that describes that we are moving a lot of what we do today into the digital world. And NFTs have been a big enabler for that, because you have the ownership or the content layer, if you will, with the NFTs that before you did not have. So, when we talk about, and I think we're going to touch base on Meta and, all these centralized solutions. My biggest concern is, if the NFTs and if this ownership of Web3 that, it has been given to us now through this technology is the actual enabler, how will Meta and all the other centralized companies fit into that? Because obviously, I suppose they're not going to let us own our own content. This is their bread and butter, right? So that's going to be an interesting thing to see how it unfolds. But just to keep it short, I think Metaverse is something, we're going towards. Like I wasn't around in 96, 94 when internet came about. I was too young back then. But I suppose it was kind of like the same. Everybody talked about the internet and, it was a buzzword. And there were a couple of companies who did something, but everybody was still trying to figure out. What I'm really excited about is that we kind of have this shared narrative of where we want to go. And I think we will figure out what the best next steps will be in the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely if companies like Meta have anything to do with it and they're turning it mainstream. What about yourself, Ho Choi? How do you feel about, virtual reality, augmented reality? Is this the metaverse? Will it be a combination of both? Do you see one kind of outperforming the other? What's your take on it?
Firstly, I would like to thank you, everyone, invite me and panel, and I'm very pleasure share here. Metaverse considered to be method making profit by making transaction between customer and customer, centered around the education, culture, and economic activity with under augmented reality is method is of making transaction between customer and seller who are mainly just product developer from Metaverse won't be just reality that making our daily life more fun, but will present us is different. Economy will be reformed. The Metaverse and will become the method is for education and culture.
Okay, so you see augmented reality playing like everyday lives, being kind of immersive with this metaverse world. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move to our next topic because we have a few to get through, and it's just, like I said, there's so much to talk about metaverse. Which companies, and we've mentioned Meta, obviously, but which companies do you think will be the trailblazers or rather early adopters in the metaverse world? We're seeing the likes of Nike, even Adidas is getting in on the game, you name it. It doesn't seem a vertical, it's vertical agnostic, if you will. It seems lots of different verticals get involved. So is it clear that, it is clear, I should say, that not one company is going to dominate, but it will take an entire industry that needs to shape it. But who will be the early adopters, do you think, and trailblazers in this space? And perhaps we'll go with you, Jure, just to break it up a bit, and, or whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, so if you're asking me about big corporations, I was super happy to see Nike and Adidas move in this. I think we're going to see a lot of fashion brands move into this early on because it just makes sense, right? We are visual people, so that's going to be interesting. I would love to see real estate corporations move into the metaverse. So my kind of like my prediction is that, you know, you always have to build from the ground up, and like the first layer right now in metaverse, the way I look at metaverse is the land. We're now like it's a land grab, right? So I'm very excited about what Sandbox is doing. I'm a big believer in Decentraland and all, you know, similar projects. So I think once that's out of the way, we're going to see other brands move in, bigger brands. And first off, maybe I think out of curiosity and just to kind of stay on track with things. But then, you know, later on, I think real economies can evolve out of that. And I can tell you, I mean, like there are big companies looking into this. I even had like 14 days ago, I had one of the top mobile game developers on a call. You know, they were asking me about, you know, how do we get into this? How do we get into metaverse? How do we, you know, what's the deal with the NFTs? So I'm super excited about smaller companies in Web3 and blockchain right now, because I think it's a great opportunity for them to kind of help onboard these big guys and, you know, create some value and grow through that. Yeah, so that's my take. Grab the land while it's still cheap.
Right. Get in there early, folks. What about yourself, Ori? Where do you see the big players or emerging players in the space being kind of the trailblazers?
Yeah, so actually, I have to agree with you regarding the fashion brands moving in as fast as possible. I've actually been in talks with quite a few brands that no one that haven't come out publicly yet, that are already working on their solutions. A lot of companies want to not talking about metaverse now, but about NFTs. They want to represent each item they produce with an NFT. I think that's great, and that will help with authenticity of their products, especially the expensive brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and so on. And a lot of the watches industry, all the luxury items that we know today. I know of multiple companies that are working on providing solutions to these brands because they lack the knowledge doing it themselves. And so it's great to see a lot of these agencies pop up that help them make that shift. And in terms of the land sales obviously are something that is taking off right now, and everyone's just grabbing land. We haven't seen that much being built on these lands as much as people just grab these lands to have them. I hope that that's going to change, because it's feeling a little empty in these worlds. I think the hype is real right now, but again, we're seeing many of the same players that have been believing in this for quite a few years are the ones that are continuing to invest their money into these upcoming projects. I haven't seen so we're seeing the NFT market booming this year, but the metaverses haven't yet. People are not yet participating as much as they're buying apes. And so I think that's something that's going to change in 2022, and would love to see it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a ghost town. People are kind of buying up, but they're not developing just yet. Hopefully that does change, Ori. And for yourself, Ho Choi, who do you think are the big players or the early adopter companies that are going to craft this space?
Okay, let me think. Apple started big time VR is in the 90s. afterwards, Apple introduced their smartphone to world for the first time, and attacked is thousands of users from the world. Since then, virtual reality technology has continued their embedded in many different ways, and after that is Apple repairing our business based on it, that there are several other companies, including Facebook, that are incorporate. We are into their business strategy. The company is searching as QQ or ride vlogging with Pioneer is China. Also is branching is other tower is VR. However, Apple string beginning meaning as below by people all over the world, and seems to be their words is infinitely as company known as that is main games changes into new metaverse world.
Wow. So Apple is for you. Yeah.
Yes,
Interesting.
next year is the new glass is I'm waiting. As they 92nd is 1996. I'm first time working as Apple QuickTime VR. Is we sensibly is a panorama sense now is so much using, but they platform already I'm very with is new products.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yes. Well, they definitely they've done a lot of work for us. Let's just say that. Brilliant. So I'd love to talk about, I guess we touched Ori, I think, or Yuri touched on it earlier, kind of will this be a centralized or decentralized? Who will have corporate control? These are all questions that no one really has the answer to yet. Like I said, it's a bit of the wild, wild west, but yeah, do you think it'll end up being something obviously decentralized, much like the blockchain itself? How do you think corporate control will work in this metaverse world? Perhaps we'll start with you, Ori.
I think, unfortunately, I'm saying it with a heavy heart. I think that eventually people will go for the centralized, easy solutions and not go for the real decentralized ways. We see that even in crypto, where decentralizations it's all about decentralizations, and yet the retail users and I think 80% of the people choose centralized exchanges. They keep their funds in centralized exchanges. They prefer using it for because it's usually easier. And I know that great solutions are being built to simplify that. We at NFTrade try to do that as well, while keeping decentralization as our main focus. Yet it's hard, and it would be much easier if I'd let people create an account using their emails and log into their users, and I would be able to sell them NFTs with a credit card without them having to download the MetaMask wallet and keeping their seed phrase safe and all that stuff. I could stop fraud. I could revert transactions. But I think that's missing the point of decentralizations, and we're against that. But I hope I'm wrong, but I think that the centralized solutions are going to win. We see how people are all of a sudden excited that Facebook is getting ready with Meta, instead of being sad about it, because honestly, these solutions were there all the time. Why do you have to wait for these huge corporations to take control of that again, if the whole point of it was decentralization in the first place? So yeah, that's my thoughts on this.
Interesting points. Interesting points. Thank you, Yuri. And sorry, Ori. And Yuri, please, you're next.
I agree completely with Ori. We actually just had a couple of days ago a debate with a couple of fellas on who's going to be the Binance of the metaverse.
Right.
I think the biggest problem with crypto, and something that is a big pain for us as well at CloudArt, is the on-ramp, right? How can you get somebody to who is not from this space to get into this space, what's the right way to do it? Do we educate them on Web3? Do we educate them on blockchain, on MetaMask? Or do we offer him tools and experiences that he's used from from an app, like or because we have spoiled everybody with these apps. It's like 3 seconds, and if you don't get value out of it, it's just not going to work, right? And let's not fool ourselves. We are super early in this still. Like Minecraft has 140. I just read the data the other day. That's why I know it. It has like I think 143 million monthly active users. We're not even 1% of that in crypto, in OpenSea, in NFTs. So if we want to tap into that, I think one or the other things will need to happen. Either we are super strong in education, and there's a couple of great projects that do this, but then you need highly motivated users, which I think the new generations are not. So that's a bit of a that's going to be hard. Or you're going to need centralization. And while I am I'm all about pushing things into the decentralized world, I think it's going to be hard because by going with centralization, you're actually a bit more secure. And let me tell you what I mean by that is if you're a clumsy bank account user and you forget your password, you can still call the bank, right? And the trade-off you're doing there is like, okay, I'm ready to see my bank mess with my funds in exchange for me, 3-4 times a year reset my password. With crypto, you forget your keys, it's pretty much done. And I know my mom for a fact, she would much rather have, a big authority somewhere to just handle that, and she wouldn't have to take care of it. Right. I don't know about the new generations, what they're going to opt into. But I think when it comes to, the metaverse particularly, I think at the end, there's going to be somebody who is going to be a more centralized entity with certain elements of decentralization. Right. But it's still going to be like, an entity, a corporation in the back. And I'm saddened by that as well. So it's just, I think that's how we operate as human beings. There's a small bunch of us who love the idea of a decentralized future, see the value in open metaverse. But then when you look at the masses, the picture is completely different. Those people don't care that much, really. They're just like, oh, cool, can I make a couple bucks? Awesome, let me open up a Coinbase account. That's it, right?
Yes. It is. It's going to be fascinating to see what people adopt and gravitate towards. And what about yourself, Ho Choi? What do you think in regards to, is it going to be decentralized, centralized? Is it going to be a hybrid? What do you think is going to work?
In the future, various individuals' payment system and means of generating profit will be integrated. With that is mind is metaverse is will supplies becomes admitted, and their future promote is a transaction to that is method. Therefore, it is expected that is a concept of a metaverse is will come to into various regulation and in institution. There is centralization. And center government is and the company impact is many companies and many officials institution, including the Korean government is making is effort offer is incorporated the metaverse into their own system. It is there is that is many management is and this supervision will be carried is out centrally and systematically controlled way.
Interesting. So if I'm correct, the government is already adopting ways to adapt it into a centralized system. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant. All right. So I think this is very telling for the panelists we have today. Will NFTs be the gateway to the metaverse? Let's discuss like the virtual environments, the items, the shareable goods. Do you think that NFTs will be, I guess, your ticket to metaverse parties? How important are NFTs? Maybe we'll just start with yourself, Ho Choi, if you want to start with that one.
Okay. NFT is afraid is to protect the copyright is our creator and producer in digital world is where is it is impossible to decently the under under citily in this error is a where files can be copied endlessly endlessly is therefore is the development of the NFT can be seen as directly related to security and the profit and our contents creator NFT, which make the value of a real more authentic as a dirt is security can protect the creator. Activity is more relationally and legally in the digital world. The NFT will be value and even word is highlight in the future. In addition, it is it's expected that the activation of the NFT technologies will be institutionalized, which will be happily for forming the development of our more systematically is metaverse.
Okay, so you do, if I'm interpreting that right, you do believe NFTs will be a
Yes.
gateway into the metaverse. Interesting. Yuri, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but do share with us anyway. Do you agree the metaverses will be NFTs will be the gateway to the metaverse?
Absolutely. It's kind of like the question relates to the previous question, but if we look at the open metaverse, the only way to actually have like anything in there at all is with NFTs, right? So every building block inside an open metaverse will be an NFT. And that's where Sway Social comes in, because if every NFT has a creator, every creator has his own community. Like, in Web 2, you had your followers. In Web 3, how are they represented? I think there's going to be like sub-DAOs, some kind of communities, and then these communities establish the value of the NFTs that you have in your metaverse. That's like in short. But I think, absolutely. I think they are the building blocks. Otherwise, it just, if there's some item inside metaverse and it doesn't have an NFT behind it, it doesn't have decentralized proof of ownership, who does it belong to? Then that's the I'm straightforward with that. I'm gonna let Ori answer as well.
It's the building block, you say. Yes, Ori, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Obviously, NFTs are the ticket to metaverse and ownership. What I just want to add on top of that is actually in real world, we're seeing the usage of NFTs as like membership tickets, membership participation in membership clubs. And so, we can see it with those big collections that people feel very connected with each other without even knowing each other. And so, these NFTs also give you access to real life parties and stuff like that. So that's also an interesting aspect and usage of NFTs.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And Yuri, I think you said something really interesting there, the distinguishing between followers and community. And I think the metaverse is going to be a place where you can actually create real community, right? As opposed to just having followers. Okay, great. A last topic that I wanted to, because I know we need to round this up, guys, is who will establish, I guess, the fundamental principles of the metaverse? We talked about it a little bit earlier. But, the public metaverse, okay, for example, if you have an avatar that's born and I guess leveled up, so to speak, in a decentralized, autonomous organization, a public metaverse, will it be welcome within a walled garden like of Mark Zuckerberg's private metaverse? What are your thoughts on that? And who will have the final say over establishing fundamental principles? I mean, if we knew the answer to this, we'd be very wealthy people right now. But I guess we're talking about identity, property, ownership within the metaverse. I mean, my 2 cents is the great thing about the metaverse is that it gives ownership to the participants, right? The people that are actually involved in it, not only the creators, but the contributors. So yeah, just thoughts on that. Some last thoughts from each of you. Anyone can jump in. Yuri. Oh no, yeah. Hoshoi, please.
Yeah, okay. We all know that the term metaverse is a compound is a word made it of the prefix is matter, meaning is beyond, and the suffix is bears is mean is a world. There is this virtual world is in the nervous snow crash, published in 1992, and it is a concept that is attracting its attention as a space for the next generation of life. However, for simple message, the app is and social commerce to extended reality, the dimension of our metaverse is still very divided, and it is also true that not many people know exactly is what the dimension is. Some would arise is that the dimension will come from is Facebook, which recently is changed. Its name is to Meta. Where other would allows is the next generation hardware vendor like Apple and Bible is a will establish is a. However, I think that is a metaverse is still just in it is easily is for us when considering is the development of multiverse and future hyper reality. I think that is there will be concerns during the development of our metaverse between next generations make reader. There is a concern that will be able to establish is the particular differently dimension of our metaverses for the next generation.
Interesting. I love it. You bring some context. You brought some historical, like back to 1992, and how the generations will, I guess, adopt and who will be the authority, right? Will it be Facebook or someone else? Yuri, what are your thoughts?
I'll tell you what, when you asked the question, first thing that came to my mind was there's actually Instagram just talked about NFTs, introducing them to the Instagram app, being able to kind of mint your own NFT, which is kind of like what we do with cloud art, but we have our own angle. One thing that I'm bullish about is that there were a couple of leaked photos from the app, and it showed that inside the settings you could actually connect to your MetaMask or to your Trust wallet, or so. I think so. At the end of the day, I look at this very pragmatically. Meta, Apple, all of these companies are still, you want to call it Web 2. I think they're for-profit companies. They're publicly traded. They need to take care of their profits. So even if they do allow these, even if they don't create these walled gardens, they're going to find a way to monetize that this whole phenomena or this whole ecosystem in a way where they end up as the winning party, which kind of like goes against what I think blockchain is all about, or decentralization is eliminating the third the third party in between. However, I am excited coming mainstream through them, and then at some point hoping that people will realize that there are other solutions out there, going after those And yeah, I hope that, you know, everybody who owns an ape right now aboard the Ape Yacht Club, I don't have one. I was too late in the game, unfortunately. We'll be able to import that into Meta from Facebook if that's going to be the case, and then, you know, kind of have these similar experiences there. But like I said, I think it's all super early, even for Meta, even for Instagram to introduce NFTs. You know, it's so early in the game. You have to understand that these big guys, they're going to be super sure before they make any significant moves. You know, they're going to test the markets. They're going to do interviews with users, make sure that they, you know, they don't make a wrong step, because they only have one shot at this. Unlike smaller startups, right? We get to pivot every 2 months.
Yes, indeed. We can stay in beta a little bit longer. And what about yourself, Ori? What are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I think everyone's kind of summed it up quite nicely. I don't want to just repeat things that were said. So I think, yeah, I agree.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad we have agreements on the panel. I wanted to close out this session with a couple of tweets in case we didn't miss them recently, not too long ago, from some prominent people in the space. Jack Dorsey recently wrote from Twitter. He tweeted, "You don't own Web3. The VCs and the LPs do. It will never escape their incentives. It's ultimately a centralized entity with a different label. Know what you're getting into." Which someone by the likes of Elon Musk, we know him very well, replied and said quite funnily, "Has anyone seen Web3? I can't find it." To which Jack Dorsey replied, "It's somewhere between A and Z." So Jack Dorsey was referring to A16Z, which is a venture capital firm that is investing a lot in the A3 space and ultimately will have a lot of ownership and control over the space. So I just wanted to end out with kind of what you guys think about prominent figures like this tweeting or, you know, vocalizing. I guess they're big early adopters in, you know, crypto and whatnot, but their hesitancy or their early warning signs about don't jump too fast. What are your thoughts there? Anyone can jump in.
I think that they're kind of reflecting on what we kind of discussed here earlier, that most of the real action is coming from those already big, and the same VCs that have invested in Facebook and other big corporations are the ones that invest in crypto right now. I can give another example from a regular cryptocurrency not related to Web3. I'm seeing MasterCard all over the blockchain space right now, because they are realizing that if they don't start playing the blockchain game, then the whole payment world is going to slip away from their fingers. Because honestly, if something is definitely working, it's crypto payments being faster, more efficient, and cheaper. And they realized it. And people are realizing that they can actually get paid. And that's something that's already being used quite widely. And so MasterCard are tapping in and basically shifting all their efforts into becoming the blockchain leader. And I hope that's not going to happen, because we're going to see the same game played again. The ones that we were trying to avoid are the ones that become the prominent players, and we don't want that. But yeah, that's basically what these tweets were also implying, I believe.
Yeah, interesting. And Jure, yourself?
Yeah, I followed this drama on Twitter. It was super funny. However, you know, there's some truth to it. I think we are seeing the big VCs, you know, wake up all of a sudden and move into this space like crazy. But at the end of the day, it's still a much more level playing field than with regular investing. Like, you can't even invest in the United States if you're not an accredited investor. So, you know, you couldn't put $200 in Facebook in 2006, 2007, if you wanted to. So I think, of course, there's always gonna be the big guys, right? And at the end of the day, I would even argue that the big guys are to some extent responsible, or are the enablers in this space for things to move forward. And I'll just give an example. Like everybody's talking about, the big sales on OpenSea, but that's less than 10% of the total volume. Like everything else is smaller purchases of NFTs. There's like microtransactions, but you have to kind of have these big stories for people to move in. Just like you have to have, in a startup on the cap table, you have to have one big guy who's, who everybody knows, who you don't mess around with, and, who can open up the doors. And while I think Bitcoin started as an experiment, it kind of completely shocked everybody throughout the years of being a truly, the only truly decentralized thing out there. Like decentralized in a way where you are allowed to mine, and then if you have enough mining capabilities, you can get the most, the most outcome out of it. You can get the most ROI, right? That's something that I don't think we're going to see happening in the future, because the big guys have moved in already. And there's like a specific model right now, as I observe it, for these young startups of how you have to onboard somebody from the Ivy League in order to succeed. But that's just the world we live in. And I think there's still enough opportunities. We're still super early on for even the smaller guys to kind of move in and make it, which was not allowed or available 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think you need the big players to move forward so that everyone can they can pave the way, and then others can come in and hopefully speed up. And what about yourself, Ho Choi? What are your thoughts on, I guess, I don't know if you saw this Twitter banter that went on between Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey, but just in general, what do you think about certain, big VC firms and big companies kind of being early adopters and kind of owning the space before, I guess, younger companies can get in there?
Sorry for that. This Twitter is Elon Musk is anything, but my patient think about it. Personally, choice is a future plan is better way. Is a huge customers of Metaverse is customers of service is better way. Something is a personally, proudly, anything. Think about it. Focus. Personally, choice better way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, sorry there.
Yeah. No, you're great. I get it. Like Metaverse is definitely the better way, and you're full champion of it. So that's good to hear. That's why we're all here today. We are definitely all champions of it, but it's good to have this discussion today to talk about the pros and cons as we're all navigating this new space, and not to get too carried away. I think some really important takeaways from today's session is companies may be labeling themselves as Metaverse, but they're using a lot of Web 2. Are they really Metaverse? Are we quite there yet? No, it's a long game, but there is, my takeaway, lots of opportunities for people that have innovative ideas to get in there and make their stake on the play, so to speak, or be the trailblazers of the future. Might be watching us today. Look, I thank you so much, Jure, Ho Choi, Ori Levi. Thank you so much for your time today. If there's any way that people get in touch with you all, are you on LinkedIn? How do you like to be contacted? Ho Choi, is there a way people can get in contact?
Yes. Okay. I'm email you.
Okay, great. Well, and for those, or maybe you can just, for our viewers, so people watching, if they wanted to contact you, are you open to people contacting you?
Sure.
And so you can tell us your email, or you can just say, find us on LinkedIn or Twitter. Which is your preference?
My company website and my email address.
Perfect. So what's your company website?
I'm typing is a chatting room.
Excellent, thank you. And so we'll come back to that. Jure, how best can people stalk you? Is it LinkedIn, Twitter?
Just I think the best way to do is just go on swisssocial.org or find me on Twitter at JUREZIH or LinkedIn. I have a ashes on LinkedIn, constantly talking with other people, not agreeing with them, not believing in NFTs. Yeah, or cloud.art. That's what's operational. That's what we're building as well. So yeah, feel free to pick multiple channels.
Great. Sorry, I've got a bit in my throat. And Ori, how's the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, you can contact me on Twitter, but in terms of following, I'm not that interesting, but I recommend following what NFTrade's doing, what we're building. I think people are going to see how we kind of change the marketplace experience for NFTs. We're doing things quite differently from others, and I invite you to follow and see for yourself.
Fantastic. Well, I definitely, those that want to know about Ori and NFTrade, do check it out. Ho Choi has his website, and it is www.
Yeah, I'm
oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to read out the website. So it's www.D-Carrick.co.kr.
Yes.
Perfect.
And my email too.
Yeah. Well, let's get them to your website, and if they want to contact you, they can contact you via your website. Perfect. Excellent. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, everyone. I really enjoyed it. I know there's so much to talk about, and I can't wait to follow all your projects and see how they eventuate in this metaverse world. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, January. Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.